Marcus Calderwood identified me before he died.
A cop who smashed his car into a guy trying to
And
save
if you
the
want to
planet.
continue watching the BBC News at 10, please turn over
There's a
to
bigger
BBC
picture.
One.
He likes to think
Or you
he's
can
controlling
watch on
things.
You don't know the whole
iPlayer.
story.
Next, it's Newsnight.
Show trial. Press red for all episodes on BBC iPlayer.
This is BBC Two now, Victoria, Derbyshire, with Newsnight.
As Israel marks 1 year since the Hamas assault on its people, its enemies still want to destroy Israel, and Israel is still trying to destroy its enemies. So how will these wars end? Good evening, welcome to Newsnight. A year on from Hamas's killing of 1,200 people in southern Israel and the capture of over 251 hostages, Israel finds itself fighting wars on multiple fronts. Rockets have just been fired towards Tel Aviv, which has been marking 1 year since the Hamas attacks of October the 7th. The BBC's team took cover as Israel's defence system swung into action. It's believed this latest attack came from Lebanon. Millions of people across central Israel would have rushed to shelters. Tonight, the Israeli Defence Force says its fighter jets launched missiles at Hezbollah's intelligence headquarters in Beirut. The day itself has been marked by commemoration ceremonies in Israel and across the world. Israel is grieving, still, and praying for the return of the remaining 97 people being held by Hamas, designated as a terrorist group by several governments, including the UK. Tonight, we're going to reflect on some of the events of today and also ask, how does Israel and its allies try and end these wars? Plus, we'll hear from a Palestinian journalist and mum of two, who we've spoken to before on the programme, forced from her home in Gaza, where almost 42,000 people have been killed by Israel's troops, according to the Hamas-run Health Ministry. Here with us tonight, Sir Mark Lyle-Grant, the UK ambassador to the UN from 2009 to 2015, and the UK's National Security Advisor between 2015 and 2017. Nomi Bar-Yaakov from the Foreign Affairs think tank Chatham House, and who works as a peace negotiator. Dr. Hassan Jabareen is a director of Adala, which is a Palestinian human rights organisation in Israel. And Dame Louise Ellman is here, Honorary President of the Jewish Labour Movement. Welcome, all of you. Thank you very much for being with us on Newsnight tonight. First, though, we are going to speak to Sharon Lifshitz. Her mother and father were taken hostage by Hamas a year ago. Her mum was released on October the 24th last year. Her dad is somewhere in Gaza still. Sharon, thank you very much for talking to us again this evening. I want to ask you, first of all, how have you been marking today? Sharon, thank you very much for talking to Newsnight this evening. We really appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you. Sharon Lifshitz, whose father is still being held in Gaza. And as I mentioned a little earlier, almost 42,000 people have been killed by Israeli troops in Gaza and 96,000 have been wounded since October the 7th, according to the Hamas-run Health Ministry. The UN says 70,000 homes have been destroyed. Lebanon's health ministry says 2,000 people have been killed there. The government there say over 1 million have been forced from their homes. And 60,000 people have been forced from their homes in the north of Israel, according to the Israeli government. Well, today the US President Joe Biden says far too many civilians have suffered far too much since what he called the unspeakable brutality of Hamas's attack. Louise Ellman, tell us what you are reflecting on 1 year on. We're going to come back to this, I promise, in just a moment. But in Gaza, Israel said its aims, as Sir Mark said, were to destroy Hamas, and also it was to rescue the hostages. It has massively degraded Hamas's military and governing capabilities, but at the cost of huge civilian casualties. And as we know, there are 97 hostages still being held captive. Israel isn't allowing international journalists from media organisations, including the BBC, independent access to Gaza. We've been speaking to a Palestinian freelance journalist and mum of two, Ghada al-Huda, who is sheltering in the Deir al-Bala refugee camp in the centre of the Gaza Strip. She has lost several members of her family. Ghada al-Huda, well, a year on from October the 7th, Israel has degraded Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon, and there is an attack on Iran to come, we are told. So does Israel have any idea how it's going to end these wars? Nomi Bar Yaakov, what do you think?
When the world opened and discovered what happened in the Second World War.
And if you want to carry on watching Newsnight, please turn over to BBC Two or watch on iPlayer.
Then the politics was changed.
Do stay with us here on BBC News for all the latest headlines in the US and around the world.
Make the politics
from the team
different
here in
and will
Washington.
lead immediately, maybe if they are optimistic, to the end of the occupation.
Yeah, I think a lot can happen. I think that nothing is going to happen before the election
and this is BBC
in terms
World
of the
News
peace
America.
process. Netanyahu won't want to hand
Israel
any
marks
victory
the anniversary
to
of
Biden
October 7th
and
Hamas
Harris.
attacks that
I
killed
think
more than 1,200
we may see some changes also on Ukraine, Russia, and we may bring Ukraine, Russia into the fold and see an attempt to resolve Ukraine, Russia, and Israel, Gaza, Lebanon
in Gaza,
at the
nearly
same time.
42,000 people have been killed since Israel began its operation.
Let's have a look at some of the stories making the front pages tomorrow. Front page of The Times. Friends and family of the dead and the kidnapped gather at the site of the Nova Music Festival. That's in the middle of The Times. Netanyahu, we fight like lions for our children. Their main story,
Hello
number 10
and
crisis,
welcome to World
bigger
News
than
America.
grey.
I'm Katrina
The
Perry.
Daily Telegraph deported thief
Israelis
uses
have
the
spent October
ECHR
7th
to stay
remembering
in
the
the
1,200
UK.
people who were killed
The Guardian,
1 year
the
ago
pain
to the day,
will never
as well as the
leave.
many
Israel
others
marks
who were
1 year
abducted
since
and
the
later died
Hamas
in
attack.
captivity.
The
It
FT,
was
Trump's
6:30 in the
transition
morning on the
chief,
7th
insists
of
the team at
October
the
when
White House
fighters
must
from
prove
Hamas and
loyalty.
other groups
The
crossed
Mirror,
the southern border
Phil
from
to
Gaza
Holly, you
and
brought me
inflicted
down.
the worst
The
single
Sun,
mass
Phil
killing of
calls
Israelis
Holly
in the nation's
the
history.
witch.
The gunmen from Hamas
That's it
broke
from us
through the
tonight.
border
Thank you very
fence,
much, all of you,
rampaging
for being
through
with us
nearby
on Newsnight
villages,
this evening. We're back
kibbutzes,
tomorrow.
military
See you then.
posts, and a music festival. They torched homes, shooting and killing indiscriminately. Hamas is designated as a terrorist organisation by the US, UK, and other governments. According to Israel, 251 of its citizens and foreigners were taken hostage into Gaza. 1 year on, around 100 people remain unaccounted for. The events of the last year have transformed Israel and the region.
Hello there. An autumnal flavour to the weather story as we go through the next few days. Mild to begin with.